I'll give a very brief introduction to all the speakers. We all know Dr. Pramod Deo. He is former chairman of Central Electricity Regulatory Commission. He is an energy and environment policy specialist with over 30 years of experience in the field. He has worked in the power sector in the Ministry of Power, Government of India, and Department of Energy, Government of Maharashtra. At the international level, Dr. Deo worked with the UNEP Rice Center of Energy, Climate and Sustainable Development, Denmark, and the Asian Institute of Technology, Bangkok. Dr. P.C. Pant is Director Energy Storage with Ministry of New and Renewable Energy. Dr. Sushanta Chatterjee is the Joint Chief, Central Electricity Regulatory Commission. Mr. S.K. Suni is currently the Chief Executive Officer of Power System Operation Corporation Limited. He has 3 decades of experience of power system operation of various regional grids of India. He specializes in power system operation planning, commercial settlement, distortion, and entire length of the power pooling and governance. Mr. Y.P. Chawla is with Joint Electricity Regulatory Commission. I would request, do we have Mr. Anirudh Tiwari from Secretary Power and New and Renewable Energy of Punjab? Do we have Mr. Tiwari in the audience? Okay, so now I hand it over to Dr. Deo to take it forward.
Thank you very much. I remember that when in 1981, when I started my first PhD program course, it was on energy sector planning. And as far as India, we were always told that India had 60% thermal, 40% hydro. That is an ideal mix. And then obviously there was no question of needing any energy storage. So now, as we know, over the years, we have a more than 260 gigawatt of capacity. And the share of hydro has gone to less than 20%. And we also know that it is not possible now to really build any storage projects, right? Because of the various environmental consideration and most of the potential that we talk of 150 gigawatt lies in northeast and the Himalayan region. And we are looking more and more at foundation type of projects which will produce for support. And obviously the other option will go for pump storage. And also gas could be used because in India we have been looking only at a base load plants and planning for that. But we need to also plan for peaking load. And once we start doing that, because obviously the cost becomes one of the considerations. But cost is not really a consideration if we were to see the willingness of consumers to pay. Because in the peaking hour, when there is a shortage of electricity, then obviously that price does not matter. Those who want that kind of electricity will only use it. So those are the various issues. So with this brief introduction, what I thought is that I will request my old colleague, Dr. Sushanta Chatterjee, because he is a regulatory specialist. He is also the author of the Act 2003 law, which is again being amended. He is again working on it. So I thought he can give an overall perspective. What is the policy and regulatory framework? Because as we all know, Electricity Act 2003 is really a titanic change from the old electricity structure that we had. And it envisages electricity as a market commodity and how to move from the approach that electricity was treated like a merit good, which government had to provide. Instead of that, it has to be market. Of course, there are a number of issues which we will anyway in the panel discussion will discuss and we'll deal with it. So I'll request Dr. Chatterjee to give his views.
Go ahead. Thank you, sir. And good morning, good afternoon, everybody. I do not have any presentation, but I thought I will give a policy and regulatory perspective on this topic, especially energy storage or related issues of ancillary. I understand a lot of people have a lot of inquisitiveness about this creature called ancillary services as to when and how this is being introduced in the country, and possibly people are looking towards the central regulator, Central Electricity Regulatory Commission for this, which might promote energy storage also at the end of the day. Well, energy storage is a technology which we should aim for future, and that this needs encouragement, needs no reiteration, and we do need to encourage energy storage primarily for handling peak and also for managing the variability of informed renewable energy sources. This is something which would possibly be echoed all through the conference out here, but being from the policy side and from the regulatory side, I would like to bring before you some of the concerns which the policymakers or the regulators have before this could be introduced in a country like ours. Just a couple of reality check. I mean, what we see internationally, it's basically the generation always follows the load, and under all circumstances, the load or the demand has to be met. And it is in this context that various market products assume importance. I mean, you have, when you read and understand the market dynamics, power market dynamics in the advanced countries, you come to know of a large number of products in the market, including ancillary services and others, which we talk about, and also in balanced settlement, because the primary objective of this market is to meet demand under all circumstances. And you have the comfort of spinning reserves in such markets where you can bank on which you can bank on for picking the services for the generation to meet the demand. And cost is also not a concern. So, if the demand is to be met, any generation with whatever cost, of course, based on merit order, can be kicked in, and there is a mechanism for recovery of that cost. So, there is a payment security in the entire scheme. This is what we have learned in terms of the international power market kind of a structure, and that's how these issues emerge. In the Indian context, when we talk about energy storage, ancillary services, in fact, a couple of us who are possibly involved in this exercise, including Mr. Suni, he will give his thoughts. He is the real expert and having hands-on experience, and also a system operator in the country, the biggest name. We in India have a stark difference in terms of the market design. As I said, we do not have the comfort of what we call the spinning reserves. We are operating in energy shortage as well as peak shortages in the country. So we do not have the comfort of taking in the generation, flexible generation at any time for meeting the demand. Secondly, given the financial health of the distribution companies, whether this would be welcome or not is also a big question, because there is a cost element, which is, as I said, in the international market context, this cost recovery is not really an issue, because the generation which is there on the periphery, ready to be kicked in for meeting the last mile demand, will be compensated based on the market price which is discovered for his generation. Now, this is one of the biggest concerns in India. Rather, I mean, Dr. Dev has steered all these things, all such meetings and discussions and discourses with various stakeholders earlier in his capacity as chair of the Central Electricity Regulatory Commission. And I was a learner and an observer at that point of time. But then there is a general feeling in the distribution companies that if you introduce instruments like ancillary services, it would possibly be seen as a backdoor entry for imposing high cost power on the distribution companies. Like the distribution companies would argue in some states that I have the handle of load shedding. Here is one instrument like ancillary services which if brought in can reduce load shedding, as I was mentioning, that you want to harness all generation to be able to meet all your demand. But then the fundamental question that is often raised is as to whether I, as a distribution company, should have the liberty to shed load or regulate my load. I do not need any generation at any cost to be able to meet my load or come out of a load shedding scenario. This is the stark reality of the country that we face today. We have been talking about ancillary services and issues relating to storage for quite some time. At CERC, we have not yet been able to formalize this framework as yet. We are possibly very close to formalizing in some broad framework on ancillary services. And likely in near future we might come up with this. But I thought that it would be better for you to understand these realities which as regulators or policymakers quite often we face before taking any decision on introduction of such products, because cost is a major concern today. Priorities in the country are a bit different, but then again it's like a chicken and egg story. The question is whether we should wait for the financial health of the distribution companies to improve and then think of products like ancillary services, storage and others, or we should move parallelly. In fact, as central regulator, we have always been insisting on introduction of market products which eventually will be able to meet the overall objective of what the government today talks of 24/7, or for that matter, meeting the entire demand or load of the country. And in fact, the Central Commission has already had floated a concept note on 24/7 intraday market. In fact, today the power exchanges do not operate all 24/7. We were wanting to at least a concept paper or a staff paper was floated where this concept has been discussed. We have received n number of comments. There are concerns of gaming and other things which we are trying to find an answer to. This is also one product which might help what we call the ancillary services or storage products, we believe, and also help grid integration of renewable energy, or at least meeting the variability of this. And ancillary services, as I said, are another issue which at CERC we are trying to grapple with. We have framed some base paper which we are discussing with POSOCO. Both of us are intrinsically involved in this whole process, and we look forward to coming up with some products like this which will encourage better management of the peak demand as well as manage the variability of the uniform power. I can assure you on behalf of the CERC that at least at the central level, we are committed to discussing, coming up with solutions which would encourage such services to happen in the future. Thank you.
He has introduced a very important reality in the Indian context, because those who are not from India and don't know, for all for practical purposes, electricity is a state subject. It is really a federal system. It is important that role that being paid by central utilities like NTPC, Power Grid, and also the Central Regulatory Commission. The fact remains is that the decisions are made at the state level. Those decisions are actually the politically driven, and that is the political economy of electricity what you have to understand. What I thought that continuing this train, Mr. S.K. Soni, who is the chief of the POSOCO, and he has been really working on the ancillary services, and entire grid, how it should be managed, how we should move. So I would request you to give his ideas and how we move forward.
Good morning, sir. Dr. Pramod, Dr. Pan, Chawla, Susan Chatterjee, all are doctorates here, and they represent regulatory side, and I represent the operator side. So let me start again with thanking the organizers, and particularly Rahul, who has been very persistently telling us that the system operator must get into this. And I see a point in what he said. Last month, we had a meeting of Grid Operators 15, which was earlier called BL3GO, now it has become GO15. The world, all 50 gigawatts and above grid operators meet yearly. And it was in Ganga. And I realized that, yes, I read this, and we have now a full-fledged committee for storage of the grid operators. That's how we take it. The argument which we gave was that if we don't give our input now, industry will come out with something, regulators will come out with something, and then we have to implement. So better we start giving right now our input. So with that background, sir, I have just jotted down around 12 to 15 random points which I thought would fit in this session. For a few minutes, let me talk about how our grid looks like in the grid. We have 250 plus gigawatts of installed capacity, meeting around 140 gigawatts in the peak now. We have a double-digit growth rate. Off peak, we come down to 100 gigawatts almost every night. And ramp rate during morning peak, during winter, is of the order of 350 megawatt per minute. We have to ramp. So from 100 gigawatts to 140 gigawatts, one has to ramp at that rate to reach at the hilltop every day gracefully, and then come down gradually. So it's a daily exercise which we do. The point I would again link it is that how long we can do it, how this curve is going to change 10 to 15 years down the line, and what kind of resources we need. At present, how do we do it, sir? We have 40 gigawatts of hydro, and we bring it down in the night to 4 gigawatts. We go through each and every unit of hydro. Why are you running? What is your irrigation constraint? Why can't you stop it? And like this, it goes on, and finally, we reduce the hydro to 4 gigawatts. After that, we start running out of thermal. So, the point is that we need very high ramping. Ramping is going to increase in future. And resources, as far as the grid is concerned, we have all kinds of resources, and we welcome all kinds of resources. Hydro, thermal, gas, nuclear, and then renewables, wind, solar, and the storage would also be one of the actors. And the system operator, what we do? We do nothing, but we run the orchestra. So the musicians come and go, the technology comes and goes, and we have to keep making a symphony, not a cacophony. So the player who comes, we have to tell him the rules of the game, and he should play accordingly. So what I want is that the storage has to also understand how the grid works, what kind of a requirement is ours, and how we will work on that. See, there are two kinds of system operation. One is who are used to dealing with gigawatt size of units, 1000 megawatt unit, 765 kV systems. Their mindset, their skill sets, the tools which they use are completely different than the tools which are required for handling sub-megawatt generations of renewables and distribution level systems. So, one of the feedback I would strongly give to the regulators and policymakers is that let's start working on DSOs, distribution system operators. Because hitherto, the distribution was considered as a passive system. a simple unidirectional. But with renewables, with storage, it will become a bidirectional. And the skill set required, the tools required to manage that will be totally different. The mindset of the operator itself has to be different. That's one part. The other thing is, some of the other matching technology, for example, safety and protection in distribution system, when storage and renewables were not there, was something very easy. Protection system, one directional fault takes place and the line is clear. But now back charging of the lines, how do we make the system more safe for human beings and the fault gets cleared very timely with the grid energized from the bottom. We have always energized from the top, but now it is getting energized from the bottom. So that's another area which I feel that is going to be very important, and it will take a decade or so to build the DSO of future. I have been in ISO, TSO for more than 3 decades, and I realized that any major reform, any major change you want to bring in power sector particularly, it is a decade business, nothing less than decade. You should assume that after conception to delivery it takes around 1 decade. So that's another area. One combination of PVs and EVs, there is a rhythm and rhyme in this. EVs and EVs would change the world, that is a certainty. Both have to be taken very seriously, and both are going to come from the bottom. We should be preparing our system for fast charging battery stations, and we saw in Ganga within less than 2 minutes somebody was changing the battery. The time which is taken for tanking the fuel in the car, it takes less time than that. And what is our wish list? We want to look at the entire batteries in some of the station as a single battery, which should act as a counter to all the intermittencies of the renewables. But who will do that? Certainly not the grid operator or the DSA. We need new actors in the arena. And still, we have not yet got them. We got after post-2003 Act, like traders, exchanges, but we need certainly actor named aggregator. Sooner we get them, it is better. They will add value and will provide service. We need for those kind of things, because the moment you go to retail level or distribution level, they are necessary because we get everything through them. So in power also, whether we talk of storage or renewable, we must have. Another is that extrapolation of past experience will not really work. Expecting that the J curve is there, that's one of the follies which we can get trapped in. The technology throws surprise. For example, I give two very day-to-day experience which we have. Around 2 decades back, someone told us that, my 2.5 decades back when I was a student, that the telephones had wire. A time will come when the telephone will not have any wire. And all of us said, yes, time will come. And time has come. Now telephone has no wire. But at that time, TV used to run without wires. But nobody said that all the TVs will be tied with cables today. So the technology has put the things other way. Everybody said that the gas will start coming in pipes. That happened. But how many projected that water will start coming in cylinders? So the point I am making is that the technology will throw surprise. We were all used to big generators, big lines, big voltages, and now everything is coming down. So we need to be prepared for technological surprises and challenges as far as these subjects are concerned. Next, let me talk about the location and time matters in electricity. If location and time was not important, then life would have been very simple. And one fear I have as a system operator, the day the storage will be successful, system operator has to change his full skill set. At present, we are needed because we can't store, so we have to all the time, real time manage. Once it can be stored, it will become any other commodity. The economists will take full control of it. They have taken off control, but they will take full control if it can be stored. So, storage will change and all of us have to get used to that. But then location matters. Location matters. Even if it's stored. Now in India, how I can tell you, as a grid operator, power flows from east to west, power flows from north to south. I go to the top, in the east we have coal and so power flows from there. And any time if somebody sees power flows from west to east, there is something problem in the grid. So that's the thumb rule for east. Fortunately, we have solar renewables on the west side and wind also on the south and west. It is just going to be the counter. How lucky we are. God has been very kind to this country for providing the renewable sources at the right place, and we must make best use of it. But location matters, that is something I would again repeat. So, as far as the storage is concerned, so you mentioned about pump storage. Pump storage has a very checkered history in India. There was an ambitious plan of some 45 gigawatts of survey. Most of them were not found viable because the entire scheme of things, when we were assessing pump storage, we wanted some energy out of it, basically. But if you look at pump storage, which would not give us energy, but only do the cycling, then many sites which were hitherto rejected for not being financially viable would become viable. Is the point I am trying to drive at, and I want policymakers to revisit all the pump storage sites, and maybe we will get you very nice. For example, Purulia pump storage. It's on Ayodhya Hills. Very small reservoir, down and up, only 34 millimeters. It does all what it does is 2 times pumps, 2 times generates, and that's the evaporation. So those are also some of them which can be thought of. We will be getting Tehri 1000 megawatt Koyana tank and many pump storage. Because at present we are utilizing 4 gigawatts of pump storage. Excellent, and it's something which provides a spinning reserve and does a very good ramping. So we would be happy if that's also. We have to have other storage, certainly all kinds of storage, but we are in construction mode. We are constructing, so there is an opportunity for us to have that. So if we are talking about intermittency, variability, renewables, and if you have to absorb that, one word which has to be always remembered is we need flexibility in the existing resources. Flexibility, even our yoga instructor, and no better than Dr. Pramod Dev, that every part of the body has to be flexible. If you are not flexible, you are in trouble. So we need to define flexibility, we have to recognize flexibility, measure flexibility, have metrics of it, pay for it, and incentivize it. That's what is required in regulation and in policy. So the flexibility, if we start doing that, then storage will become competitive. We are not valuing flexibility. We must value flexibility. And example I gave in the initial talk was 400 megawatt per minute. The ramping, first derivative, second derivative, rate of change of megawatt. When in the evening when the sun sets and everybody switches on his light, who will give that kind of a thing? So these are the products which have to be valued and recognized and paid for. But Chatterjee talked about price, certainly the affordability, all these are issues. But one number which is missing still and has to be found out state-wise, and no better than the regulatory commission to do it, is to find out the value of lost load. We are only measuring from the generation side. If what is the value of the lost load to the end consumer? all India as a whole, because there's a wide difference, and we need state by state and for country as a whole. And then many things which are seeming to be very costly would become viable and attractive. So one of the issue is the mass is going down of the system. First of all, let me give a feel why the flywheel, all of us know about the storage is also mass. We have at any point of time 140 gigawatts of mass rotating at 3000 RPM throughout India. How many tons it will be? It will be somewhere more than a lakh ton of mass which is rotating at 3000 RPM. And this mass is giving us all the kind of products which we have not been able to bring in an organized way. They slow down, they give us inertia out of that. But as more and more electronics is coming up, the whole load is becoming silicon load. It has lost its inherent inertia. Solar would not provide us inertia. Wind, we are asking how to give inertia. So, and very right, that why should we use so much of metal of the earth? Minimum mass has to be there. So, but at the same time, if inertia is not there, it's not good for the system. We can't handle changes. So something called synthetic inertia is being talked about. So we need synthetic inertia out of these technologies. So I will not take much time, but one subject which is very simple but very difficult to explain is the difference between power and energy. Whether we need energy storage or sometimes we need power storage, whether the battery is sufficient or we need ultra capacitor at some point of time, that's one area which has to be seen. That storage, what kind of storage, and how do we handle that power and energy business as far as the storage is concerned. So we had RPOs in the Act, and the fate of it, nobody knows better than the regulators and the policy makers what is happening to that. Now we are talking about HPOs, hydro purchase obligation. There is also a talk of GPO, gas purchase obligation. Who knows, tomorrow there will be an SPO, storage purchase obligation. And once you start talking about it, if it's there, why not have for everyone? It's possible, and we should be prepared for it. So I would conclude saying that I read in the newspaper yesterday in one of the editorials, and I just picked up that word and liked it, so I just conclude with that. Nowadays, everything is coming with inbuilt obsolescence. You have to be prepared for inbuilt obsolescence. Before the thing matures, it has to be retired. The way we are changing our cell phones before I get used to it. But we are prepared for all new products. We welcome storage as system operator, and how to make use of it, we learn as we come. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Puri. As always, you are very enlightening. And I think now we move to Dr. P.C. Pant, Ministry of New and Renewable Energy. The entire focus of the conference is how do we really integrate renewable energy.
Thank you, Chairman, and fellow panelists, distinguished delegates. It's an honor and privilege to be here in the second conference, but there in Bombay also. One point basically which was being made that energy storage is not very significant in India, but it just occurred to my mind actually from an article which I saw for UK market on inverters. And then I just thought that there may be something around 100 million inverters already working in India in homes to provide power supply when the shutdown is there. And if you just take around 2 to 3 units of electricity being stored or used, then it comes to be something around 2,300 megawatt hours. That's what the storage is already there in the electricity sector in our country. Clubbing with it comes now the role of renewables. And as Chairman Sir is already aware, we started this movement sometimes in 1980s with some demo projects in solar photovoltaic area, and the storage has been the integral part of that. And if we look at the total number of systems which have already been deployed, and if we convert it into the megawatt hours, perhaps I don't know how many megawatt hours it might have contributed to the overall energy generation side or consumption side. But perhaps we have not been doing this type of calculations to make a point that storage is one of the key factors when we really want to address the energy challenges basically which the country has been facing. There has been talk about storage at the large power plants for different purposes, but integration of renewable in the main grid system, power supply system, which is now very common when we have a capacity of something around 2,000 megawatt. And at this stage now we have been talking about storage in that. And I just remember actually that when we had been talking about photovoltaics integration with the grid, the major thing basically which we were talking at that time was that the storage, particularly the storage which we are accustomed to use, that's the lead-acid technology, and the reliability of that was an issue. And then we thought that the grid is the automatic storage, and you just integrate it with the grid and we will solve the problem. Now when we are thinking to upscale it from maybe from a level of say 2-3 megawatt at one point of time to say 1,000 megawatt per annum to now thinking of going for something around 20,000 megawatt per annum, then the different challenges which may come. And clubbed with that is the another area to provide energy access to the places where we could not extend our grid even after we add this much of capacity, whether there will be the places where we have to provide the electricity. And then the challenges of the storage will be entirely different. Why I am telling that, when we have been talking about storage, there are different purposes for which we have to use the storage. And the design and the configuration of the storage changes. We have already been doing some projects on storage. I still remember the projects, two projects which we had done, one in Ghosi in Mau district of Uttar Pradesh and another in Aligarh, Akroli, of 100 kilowatt grid interactive system. And then the second system, which I was directly involved in designing and implementing at Solar Energy Center of 25 kilowatt grid interactive system. The basic purpose of those systems were to act as buffer between demand and supply, to make the curve flat. So that is one of the challenge which we have to Okay, and the configuration will be different. When we talk of maybe frequency regulation and all that, then the configuration will be different. And when we have to shift the load, the aspect which Mr. Swami has also elaborated, then perhaps the storage configuration will be different. So what should be our configuration, what should be the technology, and how should we integrate in our main system the storage part. The time has now come that we should deliberate upon it seriously and should start working on that. Because for each purpose, the technology will be different, the configuration will be different, and we have to make a right policy or right regulation basically for what purpose, at what time we have to use what system. So this is really very important thing to understand. And when we work on the decentralized side generation, then the challenges will be different, and perhaps whether the regulation will be required for that or not, that's definitely a different issue. But when we integrate it with the grid, then at what point, whether Mr. Soni mentioned about distribution system operator, and particularly this is the system thing which we have already done some work, but unfortunately it happened. We do think, but we do not document it. So the documentation aspect of the previous experiences which we have already done needs to be taken seriously. And this is one of the things which we feel that because there was no storage division in the Ministry of New and Renewable Energy so far, though we have been working on the storage for long, as I have mentioned. The storage division has already been formed now in the ministry, and perhaps each of the aspects will be deliberated with the experts, with the regulators and the other policy makers, and we will come up with a good policy at due time. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Pal, telling us what MNRE is doing in this area. And I will request Mr. Y.P. Chawla, Joint Electricity Regulatory Commission. He has to deal with Andaman, Nicobar and Lakshadweep. Obviously, their power needs are different in how.
Thank you, Chairman. Dr. Pal, Dr. Secretary, and Dr. Because of 2 minutes. Okay. Thank you very much for our ministers to give us this opportunity. In fact, we are really worried about Andaman Nicobar and Lakshadweep. The experts here have set the background, what is there into storage or what is there not into storage. But let me explain to you what are our challenges in Andaman Nicobar and Lakshadweep. These are, in fact, all the union territories, the Joint Electricity Regulatory Commission is handling are small areas. They are all beautiful places, tourist places, including Chandigarh, except Chandigarh, all are coastal based. But incidentally, wind energy is not great in the areas we are handling. To the extent that Lakshadweep is all on Coral Island, even if the wind is there, we cannot set up a wind generator over there. So we are left with either renewable biomass or solar. Now coming to Andaman Nicobar and Lakshadweep, Andaman is about 1,000 kilometers away from the coastline. 1,000 and then small unions, small islands. Lakshadweep is about 300 kilometers away. So Dr. Soni is heading the grid for the whole of the country, but he has left out these 2 years so far because of the distance of obviously. When we talk of Andaman, the diesel is sent by ships and into drums, and some of the areas are such that even ship cannot, even small boat cannot reach because of the draft available over there. So drums are thrown into the sea, and then children, they can cross and get the diesel reach over there. Then comes the standard of performance. Now, do we continue like this, or we going for a biomass-based project, or we going for a solar-based project? Then we need storage. In fact, we'll be circulating the details of Andaman Nicobar in terms of what each island is equipped with in terms of power generation capacity and how much is the population. We need all the islands to be lighted, whether habited or inhabited. Reason is simple, because of the security reasons. They are the islands of strategic importance. Now, question is, whatever technology we adopt over there, if anything goes wrong, the skills should be available there locally, because anybody flying from mainland to that place will also, will not give the achievement of what objective we are looking for. So system has to be studied. In fact, there are two stations, solar power stations. They could not be corrected because nobody could go over there for changing of the inverter, etc., etc. So these are our challenges, and running it all on diesel is quite expensive for that purpose. We cannot cut trees because diversification has to be maintained, and they are beautiful islands. So solar, in fact, in Andaman Nicobar, we have already put up 5 megawatts of solar, and that's operating for last about 2.5 years. In Lakshadweep, we have few solars ranging from 100 kilowatt to 250 kilowatts. But how much of it is generating, we have yet to, get the results. Now, one solution we were thinking, debating into our mind was small biogasifiers of maybe half a megawatt, 500 kilowatts or so, 750, depending on it, should be all standard, placed in different islands. It should be standard. And we generate power over there from these units. If any of the unit goes bad, replace it with another unit, send it by, a small boat or a boat platform. That will be easier. But then collecting the biomass locally and in that right in the center, whether we'll get it all dry or not. So solar becomes a little more viable. Again, if solar becomes viable, then we have to store the energy. So these are the issues which I thought I would share with you. And we will send you an email to all the concerned or anybody who is interested. Come up with a solution, then we'll see how do we go further. Whether we make it a regulation or we call for competitive bids or whatever. So then we'll seek the advice of Dr. Deo and Dr. Shah. And let's see how do we take further. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much. We'll just take 5 minutes for 1 or 2 questions and then end it.
I can wait for the questions, please.
Is there any question? Because we started late. We'll just take 5 minutes. Is there any question? Otherwise, we can conclude. If there are no questions,
I think there's a question.
you might go.
At the front.
Yeah, good morning. My name is Sunil K. I'm from the building services industry, not really directly connected with electron is what I understand is the energy storage that we are talking about. But I deal with storage, something called ice storage or thermal storage, which is basically we refer to terms like off-peak cooling. And something what Dr. Soni talked about, water storage. I'm assuming that it must be from the point of view of pumping water to a higher altitude and then using that as a hydel to generate electricity. Maybe I'm wrong. So, is there any mention in this whole conference going to be about this energy storage or ice storage, which incidentally shears off the peak? As we are talking about making the curve flat, but predominantly it cannot be connected to the grid, but it can actually help shear the peak, which happens and supplements the air conditioning load. Associated question would also be the time of the day tariff. I'm not sure whether all these things will be talked about during this conference or not. But out of that interest is what I'm attending this conference.
If you think of thermal storage, it's very much part of your as an energy efficiency. And in Maharashtra, when we used to have very heavy load shedding, many of these commercial complexes, because we had made them to pay nearly 12 rupees, 13 rupees. So many of them switched over to thermal storage. What they would do at night time when the rates were low, they would have a chilled water and use that for daytime, for cooling the commercial complex. So it's very much a part of it. Either you call it the storage or you call it energy efficiency, it becomes a part of science.
Well, sorry to kind of interact, but I thought we are probably very slow to react to things till the time they actually become a chaos. And so I hope we will not be in a similar situation with respect to this initiative. I mean, we have issues that we have seen in terms of our transport, in terms of our pollution, in terms of our groundwater position. I hope we don't end up in a similar situation, making policies till the time it becomes an issue. I'm sorry. Thank you, sir, for your answer.
We have taken your point well from the policy regulatory and has to innovate it. Thank you.
So with that, we conclude the session on regulatory and policy framework to adopt energy storage in India. So a round of applause for all the speakers on dais, please. As a token of appreciation, we have certain gifts for you. I would like to call upon Dr. Rahul Valavalkar to do the honors, please. Dr. Pramod Deo. Mr. Susantha Chatterjee. Mr. S.K. Soni. Dr. P.C. Pal. And Mr. Y.P. Chawla. Thank you so much to all the speakers. Rahul, if you can please wait, you are there in the next session as well.